Week 14 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few tight ends I looked at off the wire this week. The first tight end, Brenton Strange of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Strange, he was on the list last week, and once again, another good game for Strange in his second game back off injury. And this Jaguar team playing good football right now, aiming for first in the division. So the last 2 weeks here for Strange, week 12 at Arizona, 5 catches, 93 yards. And week 13 at the Titans, 3 catches, 45 yards, and found the end zone. So week 14 on paper, a good matchup coming up versus division rival, the Indianapolis Colts. I give up the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends on the season. Brenton Strange, he could make plays in the middle of the field. He could find the end zone as a big target, and he's been an added addition back to the lineup for this Tennessee Titan team. So right now, while Strange, he's still out there, 68% of fantasy leagues, definitely a tight end for fantasy owners to go out there and get this week. The next tight end, Dalton Schultz of the Houston Texans. So Dalton Schultz, he's playing good football with this Texan team and arguably the number 2 option in the passing game behind Nico Collins. In the last 4 out of 5 games, he's had double-digit fantasy points. Week 9 versus Denver, 6 catches, 77 yards. Week 10 versus Jacksonville, 7 catches, 53 yards, a touchdown, 11 targets. Week 11 at the Titans, 6 catches, 51 yards. Week 12 versus Buffalo, a catch, 8 yards. And Week 13, bounce back with a nice game, 7 catches, 55 yards, 8 targets. So Week 14, I know on paper it's a tough matchup at the Kansas City Chiefs that give up the 7th least amount of fantasy points to tight ends on the season. But like I said, he's the number 2 option in the passing game. Right now, it's Dalton Schultz. This is a game they know they got to put points on the board. Now, this Houston Texan team is one of the better defenses in the league and can limit Patrick Mahomes and this offense maybe a little in this ball game. But Dalton Schultz, he's getting targets. It hasn't mattered who the quarterback's been for this Houston Texan team. CJ Stroud or Davis Mills, he's going out there and he's making plays as Dalton Schultz, and the targets have been there and definitely an ad this week. The next tight end, Evan Ingram of the Denver Broncos. Evan Ingram finally had a breakout game for this Bronco team, and he's been healthier over the last few weeks here as Evan Ingram. So like I said, they had the bye week in week 12, got more healthier, and now he had a big ball game at the Commanders with a big 41-yard catch to drive him down in overtime. So the last few weeks here for Ingram, week 10 versus the Raiders, 2 catches, 12 yards. Week 11 versus the Chiefs, 4 catches, 33 yards. In week 13 at the Commanders, 6 catches, 79 yards on 9 targets. It was him and Bo Nix were on the same page. They were making plays in that ball game. In week 14, believe it or not, Vegas does give up the 3rd least amount of fantasy points to tight end on the season, but this defense can't stop anyone all season long. Like I said, Evan Ingram, he looks healthier right now for this Denver Bronco team. Had his best game as a Denver Bronco in the Week 13 victory at the Commanders, and I think they'll keep that momentum going, and definitely someone to add off the wire. Available right now is Evan Ingram, 62% of fantasy leagues. Next tight end, Harold Fannin Jr. of the Cleveland Browns. Harold Fannin, obviously the number 1 tight end over there in Cleveland. David Njoku, the last few weeks, is taking a backseat, and rightfully so. This Brown team's going nowhere. One of the worst teams in the league record-wise, and it's about playing the kids, and Shedeur Sanders and Harold Fannin have had a good rapport since Shedor's been in the lineup, and he's available right now in tons of fantasy leagues in 67%. Week 10 at the Jets, 4 catches, 44 yards. Week 11 versus Baltimore, 2 catches, 26 yards. Week 12 at the Raiders, a carry, 4 yards, 4 catches, 40 yards. And Week 13 versus the Niners, 3 catches, 43 yards, a touchdown and a fumble loss. So Week 14, a good matchup versus the Tennessee Titans, a defense that really can't stop anyone. Even though I know this Brown offense, one of the worst offenses in the league, Harold Fannin has been pretty much the only guy in the passing game that's been consistent week in and week out. Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman haven't done much all season long. And like I said, David Njoku's taking a backseat as well in this offense. So like I said, Harold Fannin's had good rapport over the last few weeks since Sanders has been in the lineup. But I think this week they could carry it over versus a Tennessee Titan defense that just isn't that good. So Fanning and add this week in the final tight end, I looked at off the wire this week, Darren Waller of the Miami Dolphins. Darren Waller, he came off injury in the Week 13 versus New Orleans Saints was Darren Waller. They eased him back into the lineup a little bit in the victory. 2 catches, 47 yards on 3 targets in that ball game. So Darren Waller, big target. Obviously, there's not much going on in the passing game for this Dolphin team besides Jalen Waddle, the most consistent option. And Week 14 is a good matchup here at the New York Jets. Even though their defense has improved over the last few weeks, I still think Waller could go out there and make plays. And going back to early in the season, in a 3-game stretch where he had 4 touchdowns, Waller in a Week 4 matchup versus Jet defense had 3 catches, 27 yards, 2 touchdowns on 4 targets. And this Jet defense was better as well then, where they had Sauce Gardner, had Quinnen Williams, had Michael Carter, and traded all those guys away at the deadline. So I think Darren Waller, he could go out there. He could make plays for this Miami Dolphin team. Like I said, a big target, especially in the red zone. And this week at the Jets, he's a decent ad, available in 70% of fantasy leagues. That's a few tight ends I looked at off the wire for week 14 of the fantasy football season.